Looks like we got a special guest tonight. Gumby! Oh, I'm Gumby, damn it. What? I can't hear you. Oh well. After reviewing the footage from last week, I noticed there was a conspicuous dearth of footage showing how to loosen and pull back the evaporator housing and blower motor housing that's under the hood. That has to be removed from the firewall and pulled back in order to access. I think there's 2 or 3 studs that you have to access that push through the firewall from the inside, and the nuts on those studs have to be removed in order to remove the heater core housing assembly, which also is part of the lower ductwork of the heating and AC in this truck. I don't have much footage of that, so I think what I'm going to do is do a quick walk around here, point out what needs to be disconnected and what needs to be removed under the hood. There is some footage of the lower ductwork unit that houses the heater core, and I had it out on the floor. I actually removed it from the vehicle, got it out on the bench where I could get the heater core out without tearing up the new one, putting it back in, and clean the duct out, because it had quite a bit of antifreeze, liquid antifreeze in the ductwork. And also, just since this is a 12-year-old truck and we had the dash out, that opened everything up to where we could see what was dirty and what was not. And we cleaned and disinfected, if you will, both the ductwork and the exterior of that lower housing inside the vehicle. Well, we're going to start by showing you the locations of the nuts that have to be removed off the studs in order to remove this evaporator blower motor housing away from the firewall. And for starters, this nut right here needs to be removed. Of course, you're going to have to take your heater core lines loose. That's usually a clamp that can be released with a pair of pliers. So you got the 2 heater lines that have to be removed. Right on the other side of the heater lines right there is another nut, is like this one here. Over here in that little hollow right there in the insulation, there's a nut on a stud right there that has to be removed that is connected to the inside unit. And that's one that some people don't realize where its location is, so I thought I'd point that out to you. It's right down in there behind the engine. Also, down in here below this heat shield, you see this heat shield right here on the evaporator housing. Down in behind there against the firewall is another stud and nut assembly just like this. So you have this one here, there's one there, there's one down here on the bottom side of this assembly, and then we'll move around to the inner fender and show you where the other one is located. Now, in order to access the bottom nut that's on the underneath side of the blower motor evaporator housing, this inner liner, it's a plastic Fender inner liner, has to be removed to get to that nut, which is approximately in this area. Now, to remove the inner liner, you see this screw right here. There are 3 screws like it, one here, one in the center of the fender, and one in the front. Also, there are 4 bolts just like this one right here, which are 5/16 or 8mm. There's one here, there's one right again in the center of the fender liner, and there are 2 in the front right up under here that are pretty easy to get to. And again, these are 5/16, so there's 2 here, one in the center of the fender liner, and one on the back side. Also in this area, you'll see those 2 10mm bolts. They need to be removed in order to release the vacuum reservoir that's on the inside of the fender liner under the hood. You take those 2 bolts out, and the vacuum reservoir will separate from the fender liner. Right under here, there is this is part of the fender liner right here, this plastic part right here. There is one of those black buttons that attach that part of the fender liner to the underneath side of the fender. And that black button, you'll have to get your special tool in there and pop that button out, and it's right there. So you take this one plastic button out here, and the 3 screws like this one right here, take those 3 screws out, and then the 4 5/16 or 8mm headed bolts, take those out, and of course the two bolts that hold the vacuum reservoir in place. You take those bolts out, and then it's just a matter of finagling and wrestling, and eventually you will get that fender liner out from inside that fender. That's all I got to say about that. Well, there's the old heater core. All of that foam around it is saturated with antifreeze. There is the new heater core. As you can see, there's antifreeze, liquid antifreeze in the ductwork, which when hot and being forced air blown across it, creates steam, which comes out all of the vents. So we'll get that dried up and cleaned up, and we'll start to put this rascal back together. Well, we got the new heater core installed there, and while we had it out, I figured we'd clean up the housing, do a little dusting and cleaning on it. So the new heater core is in there. Now we got to put that back in there. Well, after reviewing the previous video that I've shot already, I did not make clear how to get the heater core out of here. There's these 8mm 15/16 bolts. There's two here, and one here. You take those bolts out and this cover comes off, and then you can pull the heater core straight up out of the assembly there. And as you saw in the previous clip, already had the heater core out, and you could look down in there and see the wet antifreeze. And then it's just a matter of sliding the new heater core down into that slot and putting this cover back on and putting the weather stripping grommets back into place, and you're good to go. Happy day. We've got new heater core tubes sticking out of the firewall. And you can see the little studs there that stick through that we need to put the nuts on. We got the lower ductwork assembly back in place. And now it's just a matter of getting the nuts attached to the studs sticking through the firewall and tighten that part up. I guess that'll about do. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like this video, give it a thumbs up. We thank you for watching, and please tune in again. Yeah, I think this Ranger pickup is going to be a mule for a lot of video fodder over the next several. Still quite a bit to do. I haven't had the wheels off of it yet to check the brakes, so there's going to be that, and whatever else I come across. So we'll see you next time.